Once a month, when the moon reaches its highest point in the sky and the wild creatures call out to the night, he emerges from a private sanctuary in an undisclosed location outside of Little Rock, Arkansas. Arrayed in his priestly vestments, carrying forth the good news that comic books and graphic novels aren't just for kids, that they aren't just masked and spandex superheroes, that storytelling in a graphic format can be so much more. He is the graphic novel apostle.
Hello, and welcome back to the Graphic Novel Apostle podcast. I'm your host, Mark Orenberger, and I am so happy to be here with you as always. And I am delighted because after about a 2-month hiatus, entirely my fault, we are getting back on our Human Target series, which means we have our sometimes part-time, just for now, co-host Chad Tappe in the shotgun seat. Chad,
We're
what's up,
back,
man?
man. I'm so glad to be back.
We
I wondered for a bit if this was something you regretted signing up for. That we signed up for a major kind of volume edition on this 12 book tour that
no,
we're on the Human Target, and we got the call, and we are back for round 3 for the next 2 editions.
yes,
Glad to be
sir.
back. Thanks for having me.
Well, hey, man, not for 1 second did I regret us doing this. What I did regret was that the holidays of Thanksgiving and Christmas, sort of gum up the works a little bit when you're
It
trying to plan
happens.
out things.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and also, mutual friend of ours, the youth minister at our church, James Mosley, talked me into hosting a section of the youth group's progressive dinner at our house.
I heard
And
about this.
oh, dude, we had like 65 teenagers and chaperones in our house for, like this blitz, which was a ton of fun. But, it took a couple of days to get prepared for that in the house and then a
Yeah,
couple of days to sort of break it all back down.
to detox. Yeah.
Podcasting had to take a back seat. Yeah.
Did any of the Utes make it into the inner sanctum of the graphic novel Apostles' Lair?
No, not one of them did. And I had cleaned up our upstairs as well, where, Chad, you and I are doing these remotely just because it's a little easier when we do these shorter ones that always end up being a full hour at least.
Yep.
But, the upstairs area in my house, of course, is where we like to record when I've got two people face to face and, where I hang up my comics and stuff. And I had cleaned up all that and had it ready because I figured, you want extra space. But then when the teens started coming in, they were coming in vans, right? And so it's like here's 15 teenagers at a time. There was never really a point to give like order and say,
Right.
hey, there's extra overflow seating upstairs or whatever. And I'll tell you, one of Mosley's selling points for us to host this part of the progressive dinner, we did the appetizers, which thankfully is the earliest and the easiest, but
Yes, true.
Mosley said, hey, listen, Garrett is going to be in the youth group next year. He'll be in 6th grade. He'll be one of the young kids in the
Mm.
youth group. This would be a great opportunity for him to experience like what one of our teen events is like. And I thought, I was going to say yes anyway, but good selling point, right? And so I invited our buddy Parrish Pollard to come over and bring his daughter, who's in Garrett's same grade, Gracie.
Yep.
And so I thought, yeah, cool. They'll get to mix in with the teens a little bit. And it occurred to me at some point, right before the teens left, pretty much, that like, oh, I haven't seen my own son for the last 45 minutes. And after all the teens left and went on to their next destination to have their meal, it occurred to me that Garrett and Gracie had taken a board game and gone upstairs. And they were sitting on the
Hey.
floor playing a board game.
He's gonna be a great teenager. I mean, what a great entree into the youth group. That's great.
Well, everybody always talks about him being like my clone,
Uh,
and in so many ways he is. I mean, of course, he looks just like me, and
mm,
he's got a lot of my mannerisms and things, but he has his mama's introversion.
mm.
And Natalie posted herself up in a corner like the whole time and basically froze up until all the teenagers left. And Garrett apparently hightailed it out of there altogether.
He found a quiet place to be. That's good. But he was social. He had a friend, so he didn't completely block off from the world. So I appreciate that.
Good point. He didn't leave Gracie on her own.
That's right. That's right.
I'll tell you, I asked him the next day, like, well, did you "Did you at least talk to any of the teenagers who were there?" And he was like, he kind of hesitated. He didn't want to just flat out say no, and he didn't want to lie. And I'll tell you, he was born a lawyer. Um, and so he said, "Yes." I said, "Oh, who did you talk to?" And he said, I don't know their name."
Yeah.
Okay, not uncommon with this age group, right? And I said, "Well, what did you all talk about?" And he said, "Well, I asked if he could please excuse me so I could get to the bookshelf to get the game I want."
Riveting conversation. This
So
guy.
that's my boy. That's my
Yep.
boy. Oh my gosh. So,
He's gonna
Chad,
do just fine.
I hope so. I hope so. I survived this long, so I guess he probably will too.
Yeah.
So, Chad, of course, this is an audio podcast and people are just hearing us, but you and I, as we record, are seeing one another. And I can't help but notice how comfortable you look right now. And
Man,
as we started,
yeah.
you leaned back and you pulled up a blanket over your lap. And I was like,
Uh,
my man is ready to talk comics and comfort.
it is true. I haven't the last couple of times we've done it. I've been working with different kind of sound things and felt like I needed to be in different places. Scared that my favorite place in the house might be too echoey, but this is I'm in a reading nook in my wife and I's bedroom. We have a little corner where we have two um, leather chairs, and it's just our kind of blankets and spots. And we every Sunday evening we find ourselves right here. Almost every Sunday evening we kind of lock the doors, and for about 3 hours are just reading for several just rocking some books out or whatever. It is my favorite place to be in the house. It's where the best blankets are. It's where the best seating is. It's just it's a really good spot. So I
Awesome.
couldn't be
I
more
love that.
happy to have be at the end of the day when talking about comic books with you and my favorite spot in the house.
Well, man, this thrills me too. I have not figured out yet how to make my reading nook in my chair in my bedroom yet a place where I can podcast from. But one of these days, I believe the technology and the ingenuity is out there. We'll get it figured out.
Yeah, have a good time.
So, you're not a comics guy unless I rope you into doing one, which you've been kind enough to do a couple of times. What are you reading these days?
Man, I have been in a series that has just taken over the last few weeks. The Thanksgiving and Christmas breaks, someone gave me or put me onto a book. I'm on book 3 of this series, Dungeon Crawler Carl. Have you ever heard of this before?
No, but
Oh,
I want to
Mark.
know more.
This is so up your street. Like, why this isn't, this could make a graphic novel for sure. I mean, it reads kind of like a comic book, and I've got to believe that someone has bought the rights to this show and is making this, on a Netflix series, soon to be released. Because there's like 7 books already, and it came out like 3 years ago or something like that. I don't know. It's nuts. It's like the
Oh,
guys
wow.
spit out books like crazy, and they're huge.
So
Uh,
this is prose and YA, I assume?
Not YA, at pretty
Oh, okay.
mature, in fact.
Oh,
So, yeah, beware, readers. There's definitely some language in the book. But short story, I guess if it wets your whistle on whether this is a book reading, Carl one night goes out to feed his girlfriend's cat, who is like a show cat, right? She's one that goes around, does pageants and stuff. And this is like 3 in the morning or something, and all of a sudden, aliens from outer space come and level every person who's inside somewhere. And only people
okay.
who survive are outside. And so Carl and Princess Donut, which is the name of the cat,
Yep.
are survived and immediately enrolled in a space uh, game show where it is a fight to the death in the dungeons of Earth, where they can level up their armor and weaponry and abilities and change their class and their race. I mean, it is a video game. So for people
Sure.
who like Ready Player One, or these kind of things, it reads just like that. It is hilariously fun, and the cat can talk, and she's now a player too, and so they are partnered together in this space age game show as they go through the dungeons as crawlers on the game show that's called like Dungeon Earth or something like that. It's super fun,
Okay.
super fun.
It sounds super fun. So you told me before we got started recording that you'd been reading something fun you wanted to tell me about. You did not tell me a title. And when you said Dungeon Crawler Carl,
Mm,
I thought that sounds familiar, but no, I don't know it. I certainly haven't read anything like this. And then as you started talking about it, I went back and checked in my email because I was like, I think there's something I might know about this. So I'm looking right here on my phone at my email at my survey confirmation for where Vault Comics, which is a comic publisher we've never done here on this show before, is going to send me my copy of the Dungeon Crawler Carl Crocodile, the graphic novel.
Crocodile,
Hey man, maybe it's further in the series and you hadn't gotten there.
maybe so. Oh, now I'm so curious. It's a graphic novel.
They're making a graphic novel, maybe an adaptation, I guess, or maybe a
Huh.
continuation. I don't know, but
Get
they
it.
were well, no doubt. They were like kickstarting it, not through Kickstarter, but through BackerKit, and I thought it looked really cool. The book is going to come hardcover and in like a box that I think is going to sort of look like a crocodile or something like that
Mm,
for the book to sit in. And I just thought it looked super fun. It wasn't terribly expensive. I will shoot you the link for this
I'm
after
so
we get
interested.
done, so you can at least take a look at it. Yeah.
It's so fun. So for anyone just got interested, like it is completely a fun book that doesn't take itself seriously at all, but also like it really just is a fun. It just punches fun at the reality TV show like genre and even just media and corporations because there are big space corporations that own these different aspects and like Hunger Games, you can get sponsors and there's advertisers and they have to do interviews and it's this whole kind of thing when these people are like their planet has been destroyed and lost all their family and they're fighting for their life, and with no real hope of surviving the whole thing and yet playing to these intergalactic fandom, just
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
really funny. It's really funny. So there's just
Well, I'll tell
there's
you.
several things that just ring too close to home, right? That smack of kind of real world types of reality stuff, which is great. Really great.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you what, too. That actually sounds kind of a lot now that you describe it. Other than take it away from being in outer space, like a movie that you and I recently saw together with a bunch of our buddies, The Running Man.
Yeah. Well, I didn't watch it. I didn't
Wait,
go.
did you not go
Uh,
with us?
I didn't go. I'm sorry. You're going to edit this all out. Now
No, I'm leaving it in. You skipped out on movie
I
night.
did. I did.
You went when we all went to Gladiator 2 together, but
I did
you
go.
skipped out on the follow-up, the return showing for Running Man.
I did. I
I
think
would have
my
sworn
daughter
you
was
were
coming
there.
home that night, and I got the call. I got the invite. I knew you guys were going to Wright's barbecue beforehand for dinner, and I could. I was sad to miss.
Chad, I'm disappointed in you.
So I don't know what that connection
In
is
my
to Running
memories
Man.
now, I'm
I still haven't
disappointed in
seen
you.
it yet, but if there are if there are comparisons to be made between Dungeon Crawler Carl and the Running Man, then I'd love to hear what those are.
Dude, it was really good.
Good. Okay.
Did you ever see the 80s version of it with Arnold Schwarzenegger and like Jesse Ventura?
No. No.
So this remake was, which also it's all adapting a Stephen King story. Like most things in our culture, I suppose
Sure.
it's an
Yep.
adaptation of a Stephen King story. But it was pretty different in its presentation from the 80s movie, but it like held true to the same sensibility of like this is a total bizarro thing that you're watching for the next couple hours. And so yeah, I would encourage you to see it. It was really cool.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, Steven and a couple of other guys who I know went to that thing, spoke highly of it. So I was gonna. It was one that got kind of mixed reviews, I think, nationally, but one that felt like it was a real feel good, fun movie that that didn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yep,
All right. Well, what do you say we talk about the human target a little bit?
I'm so excited. This is a fun couple of editions that we have to go through here. This definitely progresses the story along, and we get to know a lot more about our leading man here.
Hmm. I'm really interested to hear you say that because when we get up to it in just a minute, I'm going to say that issue 5 is like dip, the low point in the 12 issue story arc. It was one that I found much less enjoyable than some of the others.
Well, I mean, it has flashback stuff, so it uses a totally different kind of dynamic of what it's doing in the storytelling. It bounces around a lot, and so it was the first time I read through it more confusing and not as linear as the other chapters, which have been kind of really straight through the story. But I did feel like it was
Mhm.
interesting and gave us because it gave us so much backstory. It's the first time that we're really learning more about Chance and where he's coming from and how he got to here. So I thought that was kind of like, okay, we're finally getting some backstory on who this guy is and how he got himself in this predicament. You know what I mean?
Okay, well, interesting. I look forward to us talking about that a little more when we get up to that issue in just a second. But just as some of the preliminaries for everybody, of course, who has been with us for the first two installments of this series that we've done, and for anyone who hasn't, back in episode 43 of the Graphic Novel Apostle podcast, Chad and I did The Human Target issues 1 and 2. In episode 45, we did issues 3 and 4. And so today we're going to be talking about issues 5 and 6 of this 12 issue plus one extra issue story. The writer of this book is Tom King. Artist is Greg Smallwood. And oh my gosh, what a hero this guy is as an artist. The
Mm,
letters were done by Clayton Cowles. And of course, this is published by DC Comics. Hey, the last time we got together to do one of these episodes, I was just getting ready at the time we recorded to leave to go to Baltimore for a work conference and
mm,
to attend Baltimore Comic Con. I took an entire separate small suitcase, like the carry-on kind of roller bag, just full of books that I wanted to get signed at the comic convention, and most of them were Tom King books, including the two volumes here of The Human Target. And I got to talk to him for a few minutes. It was
yeah.
so cool and so exciting. He was really, really nice. And I went later to one of the panels. I'd say panel. Really, it was a 1 hour session with a moderator asking Tom King some questions and then them opening it up to, the floor for questions for people who came. And he had a pretty full room and he talked about a bunch of his different stuff. I think we talked about this the first time we got together on Human Target, but he wrote Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow,
Yeah.
which is the, work that James Gunn is adapting or at least
Okay.
drawing really heavily from
Okay.
for his upcoming Supergirl movie. So of course there were a lot of questions about Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and it is a really fantastic series as well that he has done. So a lot of it was focused on that. But when they opened up the floor to questions, somebody else in the audience raised their hand and asked a question about some of the film noir movies that he has drawn influence from, and he's been very open about doing that, and especially that a lot of the movies in that genre aren't movies that are just so well known,
Mm,
outside of like the Maltese Falcon and um, the Thin Man, a couple of those Dashiell Hammett ones that have been adapted. And so, he pulls from those. And so this guy who raised his hand and he was asking about some of these influences from film noir that he likes to pull in. Questioner said, like with DOA and The Human Target.
yeah.
And in my head, I was like, wait, what? And then, of course, Tom's response was like, "Hey, you're not supposed to go telling everybody what movie it was that I pulled from." He was lighthearted about it, but
Yeah.
dude, this was on Tubi, at least pretty recently. I don't know whether it's still on there, but I went and watched it. There are a couple of movies that have been called DOA over the years. This was the one from 1948. It's a black and white movie that it draws the same idea of a man who has been poisoned and has a certain period of time. His is like 2 weeks and it's a little
Okay.
indefinite, but he's going to dedicate that time to solving his own murder.
Okay.
Now, no Green Lantern ever becomes a suspect in that movie or,
Sure.
anything
Sure.
like
Right.
that. But the conceit of that film is very similar to the conceit of The Human
Yeah.
Target. So,
That's
uh,
cool.
yeah, so I would encourage you go check out DOA. It is a good movie.
I'm on it. I finished Miller's Crossing. You let me borrow one time, so that was really really great. We need to talk about that probably in another time frame. That was really great. Watch that with my daughter. So DOA is on my in my queue now. I'll have to add that to the list.
Cool. Hey, we'll put a pin in that to next time we're together to talk about Miller's Crossing. But I just have to know, did you like it?
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was great.
Oh, good.
Right in the wheelhouse, man. Loved it. So many familiar faces and that stuff, and what a great show. Yeah,
Yeah.
great film.
Well, we'll make a plan to get a little more in depth on that. Something else to harken back to. I think this was the first time we came on to talk about the human target. I pointed out that DC was advertising at that time that they were going to come out with an omnibus edition of the human target. And so instead of
Yeah,
the two 6 issue volumes, they would have all 12 plus that Tales of the Human Target one shot collected in a single hardcover. And I made the comment at the time that we would find out on Christmas when I opened any presents that I might receive from my family, whether or not Natalie listens to the podcast.
drum roll.
Uh, I do not own a copy of the Human Target omnibus.
Oh,
And
okay.
so
All
I,
right. So let's talk about
I,
Natalie's cooking.
oh, yeah, right, right. Well, she said, "Mark, I wanna listen, I'm gonna listen, but I've been on an audiobook kinda series that she'd been running through," and she was like, "I just haven't gotten there." Well, we'll see, we'll see, and I'm gonna go buy a copy for myself.
Yeah, that's right.
Alright. Well, hey, just to give people a little bit reminder of where we are in the story. So when we
Mm,
finished up on the last time we were together talking about issue 4 of The Human Target, this was the issue that focused on the Blue Beetle.
right.
And, in terms of the ongoing character development in the story, what we came away with was that was an episode where the romance really locked
Mm,
itself in between Christopher Chance, the human target, and Ice, our main female character in this series. And not only over the course of that issue, which was a really romantic issue, did we see them start to hold hands and start to put their arms around each other, but that issue actually ended with Ice allowing Christopher Chance into her hotel room at
mm,
the end of the issue, just after Christopher Chance had been down in the hotel bar drinking with Ted Kord, the Blue Beetle, and he had gotten Ted Kord drunk. And if you'll remember,
mm,
one of the things we knew about this mystery, going all the way back to the beginning, from Dr. Midnight's first assessment of Christopher Chance, was that there was some kind of out of date chemical
mm,
property that appeared inside this poison. And we had learned in our Booster Gold episode that in preparing to make the bagels for Booster's Bagels,
right.
in his bagel shop, he had gone to all different ancient time periods and cultures to collect the ingredients, which
Right.
made him a prime suspect, right?
Right.
For this water particularly, we know that
That's
the
right.
particular water that was being used was what had appeared in this poison. And we learned in that and we learned in that issue that Booster Gold had a silent partner, and Booster wouldn't say who it was. And that
Right.
was what led us to Ted Kord, because Ted Kord has got pockets of money. He is Booster's best friend and the most likely person. Well, when Christopher Chance had gotten Ted Kord drunk down in the hotel bar, the information he was able to coax out of him was that John Jones, the Martian Manhunter, had come to Ted and asked for the exact amount of money that Booster needed after Ted had already told Booster no, he wasn't going to give it to him. And
Right.
that Ted Kord had given Martian Manhunter that amount of money because who can say no to the Martian Manhunter? So, of course, that turns our focus for issue 5, where we're going to open now, to the next most likely suspect being John Jones, the Martian Manhunter. And we're going to begin with Christopher Chance and Ice sitting at a table having dinner with Martian Manhunter. A couple of things that if people aren't already familiar with the character of Martian Manhunter, you need to know these two things. Otherwise, nothing that follows really makes much sense.
It's true.
And that is number one, Martian Manhunter is a shapeshifter. So, like Christopher Chance being a master of disguise, Martian Manhunter can take on the appearance of someone else or a different form or shape or whatever else. And number two, the Martian Manhunter is a telepath. And that means not only can he communicate to you in your mind, but he can read your mind. And that's important information for what follows.
From the get go, like even just page one when I was doing it, because I started the series with a very small amount of familiarity with many of the international characters right from this. I mean, Yes, Batman. Yes, from the Justice League. Several of these, you kind of knew. Even Blue Beetle, maybe a small familiarity, but this was one of those where I was like, I don't know who this is or what they do. And so when the first page has, that they're sitting at a restaurant table with a guy with a suit and tie, white guy, I'm not sure who this is.
Mhm.
It's not clear immediately, just kind of like who this is. And it's not until you get into the story that you realize who the Manhunter is, because typically in his like regular form, this is a green skinned guy, right, with kind of red eyes and just kind of looks the whole part of a Martian kind of guy, but can because he's a shapeshifter, he can take on different forms.
Sure, and he has taken a form of a very nondescript human man
Yeah,
to
that's right.
sit in this booth and have dinner with his old colleague from the Justice League International Ice, and this man he is apparently meeting for the first time, Christopher Chance, the human target. So the way this story gets told
Mm,
over the course of the issue is that we have basically 4 stories that are being told, and they are being told like panel to panel, jumping back and
yes.
forth between which one's being told, and really we're relying on color cues in the art.
Mm,
And this is, I love praising Greg Smallwood's art in this book, and I love so much that he did the color himself because there are so many times where color as a signifier for what period of time we're in, what setting we're in is critical to the book itself. And so the 4 stories that we're going to have unfolding over the course of this issue are first the dinner that Chance and Ice are having with Martian Manhunter, and they've got a purpose for having this dinner. Second, Chance is remembering back. You mentioned a second ago that we learn more about his backstory. So we see Chance remembering his father's death, and we learn that he really deeply loved his father. His mother had died earlier when he was very young. Chance was looked like maybe a teenager when his father was killed. So he loved his father very much, but he resented the weakness that
mm,
he perceived his father as showing in the moments of his death. And that is, his father was on his knees begging for his
mm.
life, shot in the head by a hitman,
Hitman. Right.
and Chance resented how weak his father looked in that moment.
Right.
Which there are all kinds of psychological things that would be fun, to to dive into. It's more than we get in the story, and I don't think it's necessary. But so that's storyline number 2. Storyline number 3 is about Chance at a period in time about 5 years after his father's death, that he has
Mm,
spent all this time training himself, and he doesn't exactly say for what until kind of the end of the issue. He's been training himself under the tutelage of basically a henchman who works for Ra's al Ghul. And so there's a specific part of that training during that 5 years that we focus on, where this guy introduces a woman named Emma, who is from Titan, the moon of Jupiter, who is a telepath. And
mm.
she is going to teach him about how to defend against telepaths. Now, of
Right.
course, this would be so many years, right? Or this is probably 20 years before or more before the events of our current story take place. But this was one of the things he was preparing himself to do. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that shook out because that's pretty interesting. And then the fourth story that unfolds before us is we learn that Martian Manhunter had been having an affair with Fire, so Ice's best friend. And affair is a odd word to use. I don't know that either one of them is connected to some other character
A
romantically, but
tryst.
they're having and it's a secret tryst.
Right.
Nobody else is supposed to know about it. And so we learn those 4 things. So,
I was so
Chad.
interested how you that was masterfully done, by the way. Way to go. I don't know if you had notes in front of you, but I was when
Oh,
I was
thanks.
even going back and reading it today just to kind of review for what this was. I did for a second think, how are we going to talk about this? Because this happens not even just page to page, but even within pages, you are back and forth within these 4 stories.
Mhm.
Without much context, right? I mean, they're just little subtle cues, and you are being teleported back in time and forward in time and into other places with just little cues. In fact, there's one device that is used. We're going to talk about obviously where at the dinner, in the first scene where Chance is there with the Martian Manhunter, he is passing a salt shaker, and all through this issue there is this, just like they're harkening back to where it's just showing Chance's hand on a salt shaker, and their conversation that's there, and you have to wait till the
Mhm.
very end of the issue to kind of see what the purpose of that is. But you'll just, I mean, randomly you turn a page and there's going to be a salt shaker somewhere on that page, more than likely, just with that conversation.
Well, and a clue that is sort of masterfully dropped into the middle of the issue as well is there's a point where Chance is with Emma and they're training, and
Right.
Chance is like, "Well, how fast can a telepath
Right.
break into my mind and steal my secrets?" And she says, "If we were having dinner and I asked you to pass the salt,
That's right.
I I would receive all of your secrets before I received the salt."
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
So, I do wanna go back and say this. I love reading DC Comics, but I am not, like, deep into DC Comics guy, and I didn't really know much about Martian Manhunter either. And so I've read this book before, but I had forgotten some things. And
Mhm.
so in reading the issue for this show, forgetting that Martian Manhunter was a telepath and forgetting that he is a shapeshifter, I was so utterly confused. I was like, I know these stories are all tying back together,
You're right.
but I cannot figure out how. So, when I say that issue 5 is kind of a low point in the story, maybe I felt that way because, 1, it's a slower read because you really have to concentrate because you're confused, because it is a mystery that is unraveled with you having to keep these 4 different stories in your head.
Right.
And then secondly, I think I was just frustrated through so much of reading it that I was like, "I don't like this issue." But as we talk about it, I find I'm warming up to it.
Yeah, yeah. It's a different way of storytelling for sure. So I mean, it may not be everyone's cup of tea, but it's a confusing kind of thing. But it does, at the very end, it kind of just brings it all together, and it was fun to go back and read it. I think again when I already knew kind of what to expect a little bit more.
Sure, sure. So, of these 4 storylines, was there one that, stood out to you the most as like, "Oh, this is where my interest really is?"
I was drawn, I think, mostly to his conversations with Emma. That, I mean, the storyline with Fire and the Martian. I just didn't know exactly where that was going, and we'll get there. And of course, when we get to the next issue, it'll become even more clear. The father story is somewhat compelling because but it's also so you can feel the tension and how uncomfortable it makes Chance every time it's being brought up. It's being brought up under the guise that it's a memory that Chance is trying to protect. Chance is
Mhm.
not wanting that memory for someone to be able to break into his memory box and find that, because that would be his weakness. I guess that storyline is also, I feel, his uncomfortability, which is how he's remembering that story, because he's there seeing his father plead for his life, and it's just kind of, it's a sad moment. But the storyline with Emma and Chance, I think, is just one that, because there's so much dialogue that's going back and forth, and it's this kind of training. It reminds me of, like, and I just watched this recently, Spy Game with Brad Pitt and Robert Redford. You know what I
Oh,
mean? When
great
they're
movie.
walking through, I think, Prague or someplace, and he's teaching him the spy craft of, how to get information from somebody without giving too much to someone, of yourself to someone. This kind of reminded me of that same kind of thing, just really kind of getting some muscle memory on this, how to do this one skill that obviously she has a huge amount of ability to. It also is kind of a Harry Potter callback with Snape occlumency, right? Where Snape is trying to break into Harry's head and get these memories or whatever. So both of those things together is kind of where I was with these with the storytelling on this early version of Christopher Chance. He's kind of in his, looks like, his 20s, right? This is a very dapper young Christopher Chance that is coming along and getting some skills, obviously.
Sure. And he is also very much smitten by Emma, which makes it
Yeah.
even more difficult.
Mm.
I don't know, when you've got a crush on the teacher, It makes it harder to, to ask your questions, especially when what the teacher is teaching you about is how to invade your mind.
Right. Right.
And, it's funny because there's a point where Gantz in narration tells us, "Oh my gosh, she's so beautiful." And then in the next page, as they're walking along, you see her speak to him, and you don't see that he has said anything to precede this, but she says to him, "Back on Titan, I wouldn't be considered all that beautiful." And so
Right.
it's like,
Right.
okay, well, you fleeced that out of me.
The
Well,
other one that the storyline that's kind of interesting,
oh,
Mark, is like
y-
the Fire and Martian storyline throws you for a little bit of a loop because the that scene um, begins with actually it playing like it's Christopher Chance and Ice. They're kind of in bed together and they're having a conversation and kind of reliving some things. And then a couple pages later, you find out, oh no, it's not Christopher Chance. That's the Martian, and that's fire instead of ice. They look similar.
right,
Um,
yes, especially when the fire's got green hair, but sometimes the lighting shading the room a little bit, might cause you to go, well, is that white hair with just kind of a neon light shining in, or is that actually the green hair of fire? Beautifully done. There are instances where you've got like the top two panels on a page that are part of Chance and Ice together. And then the two panels that are of equal size and equally spaced directly underneath them that continues the image except switches from Chance and Ice to Manhunter and Fire. That was super cool how that
yeah,
was done.
yeah,
So, but it is also the one story that is not clear to us throughout the entire issue as to why it's relevant until the
right,
very end.
right.
So, I want to pivot back for just 1 second, though, to that storyline where Emma is training Chance
Mm,
because most of it, through a lot of the issue, we see Emma trying to teach Chance how to block a telepath from getting in his mind and stealing his secrets. And, the explanation is basically she's going to get into your mind, or the telepath is always going to get into your mind. And so you got to try and, you put up, she uses the imagery of like walls that you put up around the secrets that are the tightest. And she explains how a good telepath is going to see where you are putting up walls and then go steal all your thoughts from every place else. And then when you get distracted by that, go steal the thoughts. And he is so frustrated, Chance is, by not being able to block Emma when they're doing this practice from
mm,
getting into his mind. And he finally just breaks down and like he's like basically in tears of frustration, where he says, I can't do it. Cannot keep you out of my mind. And Emma has pivot for him. And she says, I believe you. I believe you can't do this. So here's what I want you to do instead. Here's another trick, which is give the telepath absolutely everything. Learn to break down all those walls in your mind and don't defend the secrets that you want to defend most. And when the telepath breaks in, it's going to be like they're going to push on walls and find that the walls are not there. And
mm,
when they are thrown off and discombobulated by that, even though you're not a telepath, you've got that connection with them right then. You can rush into their mind and steal all their secrets. And
mm-hmm,
you're back out before they've really reoriented themselves.
mm-hmm.
And that becomes significant for this issue.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And there was also kind of a part that it seemed like it was in that same kind of vein. That was like almost she was because he kept protecting the specific memory that goes along with that second storyline of Chance's dad. That was almost kind of like she's telling him, why don't you just give them that? Like, or what? Why do you care if they have that? Right? It seems like that if you shouldn't be protecting that so much, or that because you're trying to just wall off this one thing, it's so obvious what you're valuing. It may be the best strategy that you just don't value that as much, and just like give up that kind of thing. And that's where we kind of just learn why that memory is so emotional for Chance. Why that's a big deal, and why it's something that has really shaped him to both be the kind of person, the closed off person that he is.
Well, and also, how it shaped his career path, how he became the human target.
Hmm.
And so this is a really interesting revelation that we get here. When we finally see the full picture on display of the moment where Chance's father is killed, when Chance is still a teenager, he is
Right.
standing there in the alley just off to the side as this hitman has Chance's dad down on his knees begging for his life. And at the last second, like after the pistol is cocked, Chance
Mm,
jumps in front of his dad and he says, "Just kill me instead." And he's going to be
hmm.
that shield. He's going to be the target instead. And the hitman says, "They didn't pay me to kill you. They paid me to kill your dad. You get out of the way." And in his dying moments, Chance's dad is saying, like, "Promise me you're going to do something with your life. Promise me
Hmm.
you're going to be special. You're going to accomplish things." And what Chance says to him is, "No one is going to have to experience the fear that you just felt right now because of me, because I'm going to be the target for them."
Hmm.
And that sets him on his course of training with Emma and this guy who works for Ra's al Ghul to become the human target.
That's exactly right. The only other thing that happens right before the scene where his dad dies is there's a small little cutout scene too, which I thought was really funny, where his dad gives him a really piece of advice. Do you remember this? Like
Oh, I
he's
sure do. Yeah.
if
Go ahead.
if anything, the dad's telling his little son, like, whatever you do, don't start drinking, right? Don't get addicted to alcohol, and which is obviously ironic because our man Chance like did not heed that advice.
No, and in fact, the young Chance promises, "Okay, Dad, I'll never start drinking." As his dad is pouring himself a glass of whiskey, and then of course the very next panel we've got adult Chance with with his
Yeah,
his glass full
yeah.
of whiskey on the
It's
rocks.
almost as if, like, Chance is saying, I can't do both things that Dad said. I'm either going to have to make something of myself, which is going to require
Yep.
me to rely on alcohol, or not do alcohol and not be able to do the things that's going to make me really a somebody. Anyway, it's a
Yeah.
interesting play.
Well, so as we get to the end of this issue and all of these storylines finally start to converge, first of all, this Martian Manhunter fire storyline just felt irrelevant
Yeah,
for the whole issue. You knew it was
yeah.
going to tie in somehow, but not how. Well, what we learn, in darn near the last page of the issue, is that during one of their liaisons, Fire is going to poke a promise out from the Martian Manhunter. And that promise is that he's going to go get some money.
That's
And
right.
we learn this at the same time that Christopher Chance actually learns this at that dinner when he is being asked by John Jones to pass the salt. And of
Hmm.
course, while passing the salt, Chance has employed that trick that Emma taught him. And he has allowed John Jones, the great telepath, into his mind. And in the meantime, snuck into the mind of John Jones and fleeced out that little memory Fire saying, "I need you to go get the money for me." So now we've got a new suspect as we head into
That's
issue
exactly
6.
right. That's exactly right.
I love the way that wrapped up. Okay, Chad, you win. You have sold me. I like issue 5 now.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's just I mean, it's each one is so different, and you're right. I like the vehicle that the whole series does, where it's getting you to the place where you're ready to go to the next suspect, but it doesn't do it in an overhanded way, and it doesn't do it right at the very top. You have to kind of work for it a little bit, and this one in particular does so by giving you a whole lot of backstory on Chance in particular, to be able to get past this dinner. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? We start and end in this 20-minute little dinner, party,
Yeah.
and it's in the passing of salt that we get the information that we need to be able to go to the next issue.
Well, in terms of real time, this whole issue takes place in the period of time it takes Chance to pick up the salt shaker and pass it
That's
to John
true. That's
Jones.
right. That's right. It's
It's the
crazy.
second, 2 seconds that have elapsed. Yeah. Well, as we turn over to issue 6, and we're
Yeah.
expecting now this to be the fire issue. Each time we've set up who the next suspect is, we have their issue.
That's right.
We look at the cover. I'm not seeing fire, at least not as the
Right.
featured character. I'm
This is
seeing a guy
our
I didn't
old
care to see.
friend. That's right. Our old friend, the Green Lantern here. Yeah, that's right.
Guy Gardner, doggone it, he's back again. Sure enough,
Yeah, where
you
we
know,
go in this first issue, when it as it opens up, you've got Chance and Ice who are having a argument, and
yeah,
the argument is about where we think we're going, which is in fire. That he's kind of telling her that he's going to have to investigate her. He's got questions. He's wondering if fire is involved in this whole thing, and this has caused a major conflict between the two lovebirds here because Ice is protective of her best friend. We haven't seen these two connected in a way. We also know that there's some backstory there too because Ice had died previously, right, and has
hmm
come back somehow from that death. But we also know that there's something just like a little bit different about Ice, right? Her interactions with other people that she's had, before, they just feel a little bit different. We don't know, we haven't had their interactions with her and Fire and what that's like, or know kind of how close or intimate they still are, or if this is just residue from their previous friendship before.
right. And I'll tell you, this is a point where Tom King does something in recapping that's really smart. A big difference between Marvel Comics and DC Comics is more or less every time you pick up a Marvel comic, you look at the cover and then you open the inside and you've got a credits page, and somewhere on that credits page, it's going to have like a first little paragraph that tells you the history of the character. Uh,
Mm,
Matt Murdock was a young boy when he was in this accident and he got this toxic waste in his eyes that made him blind but gave him these superpowers or whatever. And then you get a little recap of what we've done in the last couple of issues that's in prose, just like a paragraph or two. And then that launches you next into the story. Well, DC Comics doesn't do that. So the writers at DC and the artists there to
mm,
figure out creative ways to basically give you a last time on the human target, without
right,
quite doing it so explicitly. So as we're watching with our eyes that fight unfold, that argument unfold between Chance and Ice over Chance's intention to go investigate her best friend Fire now. To us, as we're reading through these narrative boxes, we've got Christopher Chance narrating to us a little bit of the past history with Ice and reminds us that going back all the way to those first and second issues that we talked about, that he had figured out that Ice, who he did not know prior to the start of this story, just, showed up in his office, not because she had heard that he'd had, a bad break with being poisoned and wanted to be someone who was going to swoop in and help him in his last 12 days of life. She wanted to inject herself into the human target's investigation to make sure that she steered him away from Fire.
right.
And that's an ulterior motive that she had, that Chance figured out, but he had never spoken to her. He had never acknowledged that was going on. Something else too that I really loved about the way, and we've talked about this before, how sometimes the narration interacts with the actual dialogue.
Yes.
And, in this case, as we're watching this argument unfold, Chance is narrating to us that he was going to go ahead and investigate Fire, whether she liked it or not. And then the next panel, we see her curse at him. And then it goes back to another narration box where Chance is speaking to us. And what he says is, he has some objections to my approach,
Yes.
which was just perfect.
Yeah, it's so good. So we kind of leave these two where, I mean, she slams the door, she leaves, she's hot and mad, and he's having kind of a huge coughing fit, right? So he's for the next 2 pages, we're kind of seeing him really struggle, coughing, and he gets until the phone rings. Phone rings, he picks up the phone. We're after we don't really know who's he's talking to, but he kind of tells them that he'll come over and see them. And the next kind of pages we're reintroduced to the doctor. Who's this guy? What's this guy's name?
Dr. Midnight.
Yeah, Dr. Midnight, who was in the first issue, I think. First,
That's
right
right.
after
Yep.
kind of the Lex Luthor, he's the guy who kind of tells him this is the poison, and there's a weird thing about the poison, it has this time thing with it. So he's checking him out just to kind of see how he's doing. The conversation they have kind of alludes to he knows that Chance is in a lot of pain, right? It's gotten worse. He's just realizing that Chance is playing strong guy here, and
Hmm.
but also we also get reintroduced to Doctor Midnight's. Well, he's religious.
Invitation.
He has
Hmm.
invitation to go to church with him, right? He's ever the proselyte, which is great, which is wonderful. So he's real nice about it, and Chance blows him off a little bit, and is walking out the door and is going to go along his way.
Yeah, that's received about as well in this issue as it was in issue 1 when
Right.
Dr. Midnight was last in the picture.
This one,
So,
though, hilariously, from after he leaves Midnight, this was a really funny thing that I kind of saw coming as you kind of read through a bunch of the narrative boxes. Chance is laying out like what his next steps are going to be. Right, leaving Midnight,
mhm.
he's gonna have to do this. He's found these clues. I'm gonna have to go here, do this, talk to this person, go by this place or whatever. But all the while, you kind of see in the panels that he's actually driving to Ice's house. It's like
Yes.
so while, while he's narrating, here are all the like 5 or 6 steps I'm gonna have to do today. It's gonna be a real busy day. He ends up at Ice's house.
But all of those steps that he's telling us that he needs to do, or some of them that maybe he has done, are steps that he is preparing in furtherance of investigating fire. So he is
Right.
not backing off from doing the thing he needs to do for his investigation, but at the same time, he is driving slowly, maybe quickly, back into the arms of the woman that he had left this morning.
That's right. A definite pit stop he's taking here before he gets into back to business. This stopover turns out to be. I mean, he kind of narrates that. I mean, they kiss and they're gonna have an afternoon together, and they end up having a conversation afterwards. Where
An
uh,
afternoon
it,
delight, Chad.
that's right. It's exactly what it ends up being. That's right. Uh, but in the next page we start seeing like when as they start kind of conversing, and we've seen that they've made up, right? The first panels of this issue where they were fighting, we're now back to being lovebirds, and when he's kind of not looking, his attention is we see this green hammer coming in from the outside of the shot, which we know to be the Green Lantern's things, and crashes a window, and Guy is back on the scene and is none too happy about their last encounter where Chance had stolen his ring and beat the fool out of him.
Yeah, that's right. So re-enter onto the stage our dreaded Guy Gardner, and
Mm,
he's going to come into Ice's house uninvited, and he's going to attack and confront Chance. And Ice does not take well to this, and she's telling him to get out of the house,
mm,
and he's not getting out of the house. And then Ice, physically with her ice powers, attacks Guy Gardner, and Guy Gardner, I mean, he's going to get violent here with ice. And
yeah,
so over the next couple of pages, we have this fight, kind of a three-way fight that takes place where, Chance is watching two superheroes battle with their superhero powers and trying to figure out how he can or should um, get involved in some way in this fight. And he realizes he can give Ice the upper hand essentially by creating a distraction to Guy Gardner by, like he did in the first issue, pulling out a gun and
right,
shooting at Guy Gardner, and he knows it's going to be blocked right away.
right. Definitely blocked by Guy Gardner, and then he pays a big price for it because he gets like this big sledgehammer to the chest or whatever, but that has distracted Guy just long enough for Ice to bring a huge, big freezing spell, which then completely freezes Guy Gardner. I mean, it only shows kind of his head. He's all blue, iced up, and Chance is bleeding, but is not in too much pain because he can take a fist to the face, and we see Guy Gardner's face shatter, crumble
Yes.
into ice pieces on the floor.
Yeah. So in kind of this 1-2 combo, Ice freezes the man solid, and then Christopher Chance punches Guy Gardner and he shatters. So we've now got Guy Gardner in pieces on the floor. And we have a page where Chance is narrating to us again about how he and Ice try to process this. They sit down on the couch and they're like, kind of not talking and, here and there, like, what do we do? And meanwhile, what we are seeing
Yeah.
is like a frozen piece of Guy Gardner flesh that is starting to thaw and melt and turn back into just like blood and flesh.
He threatened this like plasma on the ground. It's a wonderful page. It's showing that he's, by all intents and purposes, he's going to be dead. And so
Yeah,
the
right.
conversation they're having is kind of like, what should have we have done? Should we have
Mhm.
called for help? Should we have, enlisted the help of other members of the Justice League? And now that it's almost too late, it's like, who's going to come calling? Who knew that Guy was here? Who do we need to be concerned about? Who may come looking for Guy Gardner?
Yeah. And we have characters we're dealing with called Fire and Ice. And the relationship between Chance and Ice is one of these super mercurial, we can't keep our hands off of each other. We keep falling into each other's arms, then we're screaming at each other, and then we murder a man together,
Right.
and have to figure out how do we cover up the death of Guy Gardner. Unfortunately, Chance tells us that Guy Gardner is known for, apparently his Green Lantern ring has got like GPS tracking in it, but
Yep.
he's known for turning off the ring and going off the grid. And so Chance's guess is we probably can get away with this.
Yeah.
Of course, he doesn't have to worry about it too much long term because he's going to be dead in like 6 days.
Yep.
But
That's
this
right.
could be a problem for Ice.
That's right. So the next scene that's kind of closing out this issue is Chance leaving Sky's house and driving back to his office, which is located above Luigi's pizza shop. We get a short little scene with Luigi, who is kind of intimates to him some women you can't say no to, right? And we kind of get this. So like maybe he's talking about Ice because they've met before, and she had kind of been waiting in his office for him the first time we met her. But this
Mhm.
time, who he's referring to is, the woman that we've been waiting to meet, which is Fire.
Fire, right. We thought this would be her issue. She's gonna have to wait till issue 7, to be the suspect of the day. And I guess we sort of replaced Guy Gardner in issue 6 as our suspect, and I think we can eliminate him. At least we're not gonna be able to take him to jail at the end of this.
That's
So
exactly
I
right.
do wanna hit on that too, that conversation with Luigi, because this is a callback to that very first issue
Mm,
where Luigi actually said in the same words, "There are some women you just can't say no to." And of course, Ice is one of those women. And now we're introducing her other half, her best friend, Fire. And as Luigi is telling us, she's another one of those women you just can't say no to. And so we've got, femme fatale number 2 who's going to
that's
be
right.
entering the scene. But I'll tell you what, Fire is going to have to wait till issue 7, and our listeners are going to have to wait until a couple more episodes because next episode, let's talk about Tales of the Human Target number 1, that one shot that was published between issues 6 and 7. And the reason that was done was to keep the story rolling along and give the artist enough time to sort of get ahead. So we have a different artist who is going to be doing that one shot, Tales of the Human Target, that was published in between. And I think this is a good place to lace it in because when we get to the conclusion of Human Target at the end of issue 12, I think we're going to want to leave it right where it is. I don't think we're going to want to go back and talk about a different story. So, Chad, I'm going to have to find a way to get a copy of Tales of the Human Target issue number 1 in your hands. I will do it, and we will get back here together on the Graphic Novel Apostle podcast. What do you say to that?
And wait, bro.
All right, fantastic. Chad, thank you for coming back and doing this with me again. So fun as always.
Always a pleasure. Really had a great time. We'll see you next time.
Oh, no doubt. And to all of our listeners, I am going to plan to come back next week with another installment in the Batman the Long Halloween series. I know I said that at the end of last episode. Man, guys, it was the end of the holiday break. The spirit was, willing, but the flesh was weak. I think maybe even the spirit was unwilling. I was tired and had to get back to work. But I'm so glad to be doing this again. We will be back with you and all of our listeners. Thank you for being here with us. And until next time, keep reading those comics.